President Biden signed several executive orders regarding immigration on day one, including a call for Congress to grant permanent status and a path to citizenship for dreamers, and changes to arrest priorities for immigration and customs enforcement. Late Wednesday night, the Department of Homeland Security announced that it would take the unprecedented step of pausing almost all deportations for 100 days, set to begin on Friday, and that it would surge resources to the southwest border in an attempt to process thousands of asylum seekers for entry into the U.S. UCLA law professor Hiroshi Marumura thinks the Biden administration has shown a real interest in solving the humanitarian crisis along the border.
I think the first step, and probably the deepest commitment of the Biden administration, is to restore some sense of the rule of law to what's going on the border.
Comprehensive immigration reform will take months to work through Congress, but immediate action for those in immigration detention and asylum seekers along the border could take just a few short weeks, as the Biden administration looks to quickly amend a Trump administration rule that stopped asylum processing since the beginning of the pandemic. Erica Pinheiro is a lawyer who works with asylum seekers stuck in Tijuana.
I think we've seen the administration backtrack from some of the day one promises to sort of we need to do some work before we fulfill said promise.
Much of that work has been done in coordination with a group of local officials and immigrant advocacy groups known as the California Welcoming Task Force. Working with the president's transition team, they began to outline ways the Biden administration can begin to quickly process thousands of asylum seekers along the southern border and allow them to safely enter the United States. Attorney Margaret Cargioli was part of that group.
We understand that the Biden administration is facing serious challenges due to the extreme measures that the Trump administration took to undermine asylum law and dismantle immigration law.
On Tuesday, asylum seekers in Tijuana held a press conference, asking the Biden administration to take quick action. But first, the administration needs to work with Customs and Border Protection, which manages the country's ports of entry. Leadership of the agency has been hostile to many of the Biden administration's priorities. Cargioli thinks they could find more help elsewhere in the government.
The Biden administration should look into other facets of the government that can take away any legal, humanitarian type cases away from basically a police enforcement agency.
The Biden administration has already floated a stepped-up role for asylum officers and the State Department. There's an estimated 15,000 asylum seekers in Baja California, who either were denied the chance to apply for asylum or were sent back there under the Remain in Mexico program. The first stop for many of these asylum seekers in San Diego will be a shelter run by Jewish Family Service of San Diego, in conjunction with the county. Kate Clark is their Senior Director of Immigration Services. She says the shelter is up to the task of housing asylum seekers during a public health emergency.
We've seen historically asylum seekers coming and arriving to our care in very stressful situations, like in need of medical assistance with communicable conditions such as lice and scabies as a direct result of being in short-term DHS custody, including Border Patrol facilities or at the port of entry. But really, we've been able to develop a coordinated response with public health and other medical infrastructure to be able to tend to the unique needs that our guests have when they arrive to us.
After a few days at the shelter, they'll then continue their immigration case from inside the U.S. As the Biden administration reopens safe pathways into the country for those seeking safety and opportunity, San Diego looks to become, once again, a front door into the United States. Max Rivlin-Nadler, KPBS News.